Hi, this is Bill Hader.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Bill Hader.
Bill Hader?
Hello, you have found yourself either by accident or design to the We Heart Hater podcast. I am your hater historian, Deej Barons.
And I'm your super crunk co-host, Casey Killingsworth, Fallout Boy.
So we're all here to talk about, of course, Bill Hader, very specifically Season 32, Episode 6 on November 18th, 2006, where Ludacris does double duty as host and musical guest. But first, just last night, Bill appeared on Late Night with Seth Meyers. I don't know if he was quite promoting Cat in the Hat yet. I know there was some stuff at the end where he was going to mention it, but it's even if he's not there to promote anything, it's still great to see just those two guys talking together. Finally got an update as to why Bill was not at the 50th. There was speculation, and yes, it was because of the anxiety that he didn't want to do it.
Andy did basically a short about the fact that everybody had anxiety at SNL.
Yeah.
Was that sort of edifying? To be like, oh, yeah, good.
Yeah, well, Andy called me and was like, hey, so we're doing this short about how, anxiety, everybody had anxiety, and so it's me calling you, and da-da-da-da. And when he told me about it, I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. He was like, why? And I'm like, because I'm anxious. I was like, I don't want to do it. He was like, come on, man. What do you mean? No.
Which I can understand because around that time, there was a Palisades fire. When that first started, he was up in Malibu filming the VW commercial, and someone notices all the smoke coming out of the Palisades. Some of the crew said, oh, it's just the Palisades, but I live in the Palisades. There's three things that get discussed. First, the SNL, the New York with his daughters. He tells another great story. Something tells me that his middle daughter, Harper, is probably going to be the one to keep on to the family tradition.
We're going to see a movie, and these two kids walked by, and one of them had an American Cinematheque t-shirt, and it was like two 13-year-old boys, and they were kind of nerdy. And I was like, oh, guys, that was kind of like how I was when I was 13, like really nerdy, and, just I didn't have a big group of friends, just like one friend, and just go to see movies, and never really went to parties or anything, just go see movies and go to bookstores and go to movies, music stores and stuff. It was nice. It was nice, though. And my middle daughter went, wow, Dad, I have chills. And she's like, wow, who's going to play you in the movie about the two boys who have no friends and just go see movies? Wow, I love the myth-making. She did, and I was so mad at her, but I was also like, that's really funny.
She was the instigator behind the Chris Pratt incident. So as usual, his middle daughter just basically, I think his middle daughter keeps him humble pretty much.
That's a good way of putting it. On top of the anxiety, as Seth said, it's best that he wasn't there because he had just recently had shingles at that time, which spawned a fun discussion of why name it something cute like shingles, because you won't get vaccinated for that right away necessarily.
Yeah,
I mean, if they called it,
it's right. It doesn't sound so serious, but
I mean,
yeah.
If they call it fire blisters, then maybe you get on it, but not shingles. That sounds like something only a kitten would get.
Well, yeah, because what it is essentially sort of a variation on chickenpox, and you can get it if you have or haven't had chickenpox when you're a kid or not. And chickenpox, of course, is a form of herpes, so they're all kind of related. But this has actually convinced me to finally get off my ass and get my shingles vaccination, because it's one of the things I should do this because I am of that age. Well, if Bill Hader says it's effective, it should be done, then I'm going to go ahead and do it. Which also leads into discussion all the various maladies that he has had over years in childhood. So we have migraines, we have his peanut allergy, anxiety. Then of course there's the problem with his left eye. that is so popular because it's been kind of inactive, but there is a Bill Hader's Left Eye Twitter account.
Oh yeah, I remember that being a thing. And he said he wasn't at the Emmys because his left eye exploded.
Yes.
He had to get shots in his eye.
Yeah.
And that, I think, led to a running gag that I'm sure Deej loved, where he imitated his doctor's voice. It was like kind of Jersey Hater, and it was like, hey, I'm a doctor, but I also make a nice pizza pie with cheese and pepperoni. But you don't want a doctor that puts pineapple on pizza.
No, you don't want anyone who puts pineapple on pizza. And the fact that Hawaiian pizza, which is where that kind of originated, was invented in Ontario. On behalf of Canada, for fellow pineapple on pizza haters, I apologize for my country. It's also related the story back to season 1 for the Appalachian Emergency Room sketch, where he's backstage just about to go on, and he gets one of his big migraines.
And he lost his vision,
Yeah.
So Jason Sudeikis had to lead him onto the stage, holding him by his real hand that was not a prosthetic carved out of foam rubber with a dart through it. After that sketch, he was backstage with an ice pack on the back of his head, and the nurse was updating him, just dazed and out of it, and the nurse was updating him on what was going on in that episode right now, and she said, oh, it's like a pre-tape with Andy's, the new kid Andy, and Chris Parnell rapping about the Chronicles of Narnia. I don't know what it is. It's kind of was Bill in the moment of the birth of YouTube and the big turning point for the show going into the late 2000s. Just that massive historical crucial turning point to the show. He was too migrained out to fully witness it, but he was there.
I'm very glad I'm not much for headaches, and migraines are just worse. But from what I hear about shingles, it does not sound fun. So I'm off on Friday, so I'm gonna book my shingles vaccine.
I think I can only say that I've only ever gotten one migraine in my life, because my mom called at one point and I told her I had a really bad headache that I could only feel like inside the back of my eyeball. It's like, oh, honey, that's a migraine. I've had them. So, and the closest headache I've had to that would be like a sinus headache from the really bad air quality when there's like smoke in the air in Colorado. And that was so debilitating. I had to drink Theraflu to get rid of it until, one point I had one and I drank some Theraflu and I couldn't keep that down. So I thought, the next time I get that, I'll just like take ibuprofen with some tea or something. That's
in the episode of Mike Birbilia's podcast, Working It Out. So apparently, it's his mother's side of the family gets some migraines, and he was in elementary school, and the migraine happened, and of course he went to the hospital, and being of course Oklahoma, the nurse or doctor that came up to him first was basically has said, "Okay, which side of your head's broke?" It is actually nice to get some clarification on why he wasn't there, which is completely understandable. And, of course, how happy he is with Allie.
It's been amazing. Yeah,
And
we've
now-
been together 3 years. Yeah.
And now, but again, you're at the place, where sort of, my wife Alexi is at, where like now she's out doing a new hour, and I would imagine like you're there in the hour.
Yeah, it's rough. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah. I can't say what her jokes are in the new hour, or she'll kill me. She's like, that's money, Bill. That's money out of my pocket. No.
He knows that her being a comedian, that there are things from their life that there is going to be alluded to in her stand-up.
I like the tidbit he mentioned where he said, like, how she talked about having sex with that hot guy in the hotel? I'm not that guy. I'm the guy that gave her flowers. And when he said he's like having to be in the audience for that and sit through her telling that and having to hear a bunch of women like cheering because they're living vicariously through her. Yeah, have sex with that hot guy, Allie. And he's just like, yay.
So devoted family man, guy who has many, many medical problems. This is the man we love, known as Bill Hader. A multifaceted individual.
And I was going to add that tidbit about having sex with a hot guy in a hotel and all those women cheering, that reminded me of his part in the Bradley Cooper "I'm going to have sex with your wife" sketch to a T.
That was Bill and Seth Meyers, two good friends having a great conversation, laughing about things. You can't get much better than that. We're getting into the episode of season 32, episode 6, with Ludacris, who is both host and musical guest. Now, he only has 2 appearances in this episode, but they're ones that don't get talked about a lot, and there's reasons why I can sort of see, but I still think they have some charm to them. So the very first one we have is a infomercial for people who are having marital problems. The bitch slap method. We have Maya Rudolph, who's the wife of Dr. Bitch Slap, who is played by Ludacris. There's 2 couples, Jason and Kristen, Amy and Bill. It's a very interesting dynamic between Amy and Bill because actually I had to quickly look up how tall is Amy Poehler.
She's 5'2", by the way.
Bill is a foot taller than her. He is so shrunk down, and you can tell he's been through it. Just his body language and the way he's speaking, and her being so happy.
I was at wit's end. He was never home. He always said he was working late.
Which was a lie.
He would lie right to my face.
I would.
I saw your advertisement on TV, and I thought, why not?
It was the best thing we ever did.
I would say after watching the tapes, I started the method right away.
She did, and it was very effective.
I think he's really come around.
I have. I love her so much.
You know, it's so easy. I think the method should be used every day.
Why? I mean, yes, I love you.
And just a moment when he said that, he kind of looked a little bit like Michael Longfellow.
Yeah, that was expertly timed. Just why? I mean, yes, I love you.
Now, this could be problematic because it does involve people slapping each other. But when it comes to the relationship between Maya and Dr. Bitch Slap, the one big thing from Maya that I love is that...
Is it difficult to put the bitch slap method into practice?
Because I have watched a lot of infomercials in my time, and they just had the cadence right down. And even later on...
When we come back, more couples share their amazing experiences with the bitch slap method. And Dr. Archibald Bitch Slap will demonstrate on me.
Oh, yes, I will.
And I'm going to get you back.
Domestic violence is not funny, but the fact that they use the name of him being Dr. Bitch Slap, I think that was meant to soften, but from the performances of Bill with Amy just together, he's just so small, so very small.
Does come a little bit close to making light of spousal abuse, almost trivializing it, but it dances around that subject very lightly in writing and execution. I'm not even quite sure this sketch held up well as it was airing, but it did inspire me to do something a bit different for this podcast, my blog, where at the end, I'm going to give a ranking of, I'm going to rank each sketch by how well it holds up in 2025. But I will say the real MVP of this is Maya. I'd say she did a great job anchoring this sketch because she provided a warmth and charm to this premise that was desperately needed to counteract the lingering menace exuded by Luda and Jason and Amy, and kind of also balance out the timid, living in perpetual fear vibe of Bill and Kristen. And she especially shines through in the pre-tape montage of her and Luda slapping the mannequins. And one thing that it has going for it is it encourages both men and women, husbands and wives, to apply the method to each other. It's not necessarily a great thing since it's still domestic violence, but it makes this sketch feel a little bit more playful and less mean and nasty. So you can't make too strong a case for this punching down, and pun definitely not intended, but phrasing sadly unavoidable. So thankfully, this was executed in a way that this didn't come across like it would have played better on Chappelle's show or like season 7 of Mad TV or, God forbid, season 19 of SNL. But I did get a slight kick out of this sketch ending with just a still image of the fake, a doctored image of the fake booklet and DVD set that just plays over Muzak and nothing else, because whatever pre-recorded voiceover that was supposed to be playing over that clearly wasn't working. So just kind of a silly, dull thud for this to end on.
Well, that kind of music was very typical of infomercials, so they definitely captured the old infomercial vibe so very well. The next part is in Weekend Update. Something that came up in my Twitter feed, yes, I know what it's actually called, I'm not going to use that, don't make me, is there's an interview that resurfaced with John Mark Carr. Back in history around this time was the unfortunate case of the JonBenet Ramsey. John Mark Carr had claimed to be the one that unalived her. Where they're going with this particular bit for Weekend Update, it was around this time when Fox was planning to do a special of O.J. Simpson based on his book, If I Did It. There was this clip from an interview that I found 3 weeks ago, John Mark Carr talking about this impression, and we'll play that right now.
I got parodied on Saturday Night Live, and it made me feel like dying.
I did see that.
It was so, well, it wasn't an it. It happened several times.
Really?
And I despise Bill Hader because that guy is the one who portrayed me.
Yes.
When I saw it one time because my girlfriend at the time, she had her laptop and I didn't know what. She said, "Come here, I want to show you something."
Oh, no.
And she knew how I had an aversion to any publicity about myself. I've always never looked at it. Some people will tell me about it and they'll give me a paraphrase or something like that. But she just, I went to her laptop and she just hit play.
Oh, I'm just remembering another terrible thing I did. Seth, I can tell you this because I feel like you understand me.
I don't.
The other day, I went to Naomi Campbell's apartment and I hit her maid on the back of the head with a cell phone. Oh my God. Feels so good to confess to all my heinous crimes, y'all.
Yeah, I don't think you did that either.
I shot 50 Cent.
Oh, come on.
Oh, geez.
And I just stood there and it was kind of like a little bit of a laugh came out of me. You know, I had kind of a smile, but after it was over, she looked at me and she said, "You do realize that actors, when they're parodied on Saturday Night Live, that means they've made it." And I said, "Yeah, well, you know what? For some reason, I don't feel like that. I feel horrible now. I feel terrible."
So, as we've also seen recently, the White House White Lotus parody, there was some controversy with the actress regarding that. So, yeah, sometimes impressions can lead to some hurt. But when you're in the public eye, that kind of stuff does happen. And it wasn't done frequently. It will be done twice. It was done during this weekend update episode. In season 33, the episode hosted by Tina Fey, they did a series of various promos for The Apprentice. Daryl Hammond as Donald Trump.
At 9:30, we mix it up with Celebrity Apprentice Special Victims Unit with team captains Mary Jo Buttafuoco and the creepy JonBenet Ramsey guy, John Mark Carr.
Your job is to produce and market your own sex tape. John Mark Carr, I've got to be honest, you gave me the willies, man, and not in a good way.
Really? I always thought I had an innate natural charisma.
Sensitive subject, but I can definitely see where we're going with that.
Special Victims Unit, that seems appropriate. And yeah, I'll say Bill made this funny enough. He put over the creepiness of it. And thank you, Deej, for providing the very necessary background information. And I'll add that, you know, being a Coloradan and not just a Coloradan, but being from Boulder County specifically, where the murder took place in, I want to say 97. It was a pretty big story in my own neck of the woods. We've seen back then references to it all the time. Mad TV, South Park, everyone parodied the parents who everyone thought did it, obviously. All you really need to know is that this person falsely confessed to killing JonBenet Ramsey that summer. That's all you really need to know to understand why it would be funny that he would also suddenly claim to kill 50 Cent, Nicole Brown Simpson, Bambi's mom, and thrown a cell phone at the head of Naomi Campbell's maid. So and the 50 Cent thing got me. He says, I shot 50 Cent, not all 9 times, only like the first 5 or 6. I shot 50 Cent 11 times. And it did remind me a bit of another Seth Meyers joke that I don't know if we're going to cover it on this podcast later, but this was a year before he would actually go to jail for that assault and battery armed robbery thing where he tried to get back his memorabilia, but became, strapped to the teeth, armed to the teeth. And Seth said, this week, O.J. Simpson went to prison for armed robbery and aggravated assault, but really murder.
That's the bill bits. Not a lot, but still I think they're really good, really well done, and worth mentioning. Just in general, I believe Ludacris did a pretty good job for doing a double duty. Hosting SNL by itself is daunting to even the most experienced performer. So previously, he was the musical guest on January 22nd, 2005. This particular one, where he did double duty, November 18th, 2006. And then he was musical guest on November 22nd, 2008. A cameo appearance in May 2004. And then another appearance in January 22nd, 2005, where he performed with Sum 41. As a host, he did pretty good.
And yeah, he was a solid host who proved to be game for pretty much anything and had the ability to elevate some of the weaker material. Most of what wasn't based around bad stereotypes, it felt like they were leftovers. The season 30 sketches worked to some degree. Talking about him as a host, I'll add that there's a YouTube video on this where the show's director, Don Roy King, was interviewed about having to do this episode right after a famous episode hosted by Alec Baldwin was kind of scary because he was only 23 and outside of Crash hadn't had much acting experience. So he was kind of leaning on his presence and swagger to get through the show. And they thought he was stumbling through rehearsal a bit, and they thought he wasn't shaky because he was on something. He was just nervous. And then, so Don Roy King went up to him in between dress and air and said, he's come a long way, did great in rehearsal. So Ludacris grabbed him and hugged him and said, thank you, man. I needed to hear that. And then after the show, Ludacris asked Don Roy King to tell his mom what he told him between dress and air. So, there was a real heartwarming behind the scenes atmosphere there that came to a head at just the right time.
We have the cold open, and this is a George W. Bush cold open. Will Forte had been doing the impression, but he just didn't want to do it anymore because he didn't think he was doing very well at it. And it's about a trade summit where all of a sudden the U.S. is back at war with Vietnam. I'm not really a huge fan of political cold opens. Sometimes they can be amusing. And I didn't really think Jason Sudeikis' George W. Bush was all that bad. It was actually pretty decent. But it did go on long.
Yeah, Sudeikis he clearly wanted the impression because one of those stories from the show videos on SNL's YouTube showed footage of him auditioning with that impression in 2004 when he was trying to get into the cast from just being a writer. And it's one of the more committed ones. And it's one of the more traditional George W. Bush impressions. Sadly, probably the least remembered simply by virtue of not being Farrell or Forte and just being in the late duck stage of his presidency where people were sick of hearing about him and really just wanted to move on to 2008 to see who would succeed him. Far from the worst or most awkward we've seen, but it's serviceable and works just fine. And it got literal clapter from the audience when he mentioned that this new war with both North and South Vietnam may lead to the withdrawal of troops in Iraq. And he also said he wanted to cut taxes while fighting this war just to try it, see if he could do it. And other than that, it was just felt like, a string of typical Bushisms from the time. So not a lot stood out here. I wouldn't say it's too lost to the time fog, to borrow a phrase from That Week in SNL, because an economic summit may be very specific to the exact week that happened, but comparing the Vietnam War to the war in Iraq will always seem like an evergreen premise for political satire of this time, because this was really right when the Iraq War dominated the news, because the press it'd been going on for like 3 years, and the press was finally starting to declare it the unwinnable quagmire that it rightfully was. But moving on to lighter topics, once again, it's Ludacris's monologue, which gets the show off to a more fun vibe, doesn't it, Deej?
But before the monologue, now this is going to be probably a very bad Kristen Welker impression, but I'm going to try it anyway, with the legendary pronunciation of Foo Fighters. Yeah, that sucked. Sorry, I tried. Foo Fighters. That's a bit better. For some reason, that Don Pardo, very old soul that he was pronounced his name as Ludacris, not unlike Sudeikis. And he did it twice. And I'm not going to really fault the man too much. I mean, he was pretty old at that point. I can sort of see where he'd have trouble with the names, because when you think of Ludacris and Sudeikis, or Sudeikis, which you do, can sound pretty similar. So then on to the monologue. There's times he goes as Ludacris, and there's times he's known as Chris Bridges. And then he brings out comes an old friend, Rick Dickulus, wannabe rapper who doesn't quite make the kind of success that, of course, Ludacris had done. Bringing out the old 1980s cell phone, the bricks. And I was talking about how we'll have some interviews with, I think it was, Taco Bell / KFC.
It's 2 interviews there.
He ends up getting a job at the airport baggage area.
Yeah, I mean, Keenan was really the highlight of this, coming out dressed as Temu Flava Flav with the longest antenna you've ever seen on an 80s cell phone. I'd describe Keenan's character as like, if Public Enemy got their own Straight Outta Compton type movie, but it turned out to be one of those unofficial Lifetime biopics that can't get the rights to their music or their image.
Yes.
So basically, the way they execute that airport joke is funny, because he says he just got a job with NWA, and then Ludacris is like, NWA hadn't been together since 91. No, Northwest Airlines, I'm a baggage handler at Terminal D. And by the way, who calls someone at 11:40 p.m. on a Saturday to tell them they've just got a new job? And I did also like the Chris Bridges part of the monologue. So he says,
for example, I'll give you an example. If I meet a girl at a club, my name is Ludacris. But when I meet her parents, it's Chris Bridges, right? Now, when I'm in the studio, it's always Ludacris. But when I'm applying for a bank loan, I tend to stick with Chris Bridges, if you know what I mean. If I'm stopped by the cops, I'm Chris Bridges. If I'm stopped by a black cop, I'm Ludacris.
When he uses the name Ludacris versus real name Chris Bridges in the studio, in the club, meeting girls, it's Ludacris. But when I'm meeting that girl's parents or applying for a bank loan, it's Chris Bridges. Getting pulled over by cops, I'm Chris Bridges. But if I'm getting pulled over by a black cop, I'm Ludacris.
There's a YouTuber, Jana Lorenzo, where she had this one skit about how you have your regular voice, then you have your dealing with something professional voice.
Oh my god, who the hell chooses these stupid songs? Like, it's so like... Can I help you today? Hello? Hi, yes. I'm calling because I received a letter stating that I need to renew my FAFSA application. Yes, because of a change of address? Yes. Oh, you're the best. Okay, great. Have a great day. Thank you, Deborah. All right. Okay. Okay, bye. Bye-bye.
The next one is the Young Douglas, hyping the classics. So taking rap songs that aren't rap songs, and being a hype man. And I did love this one. It's a bit of an impression parade.
Yeah, so just to fill people in case you're not familiar with the world of rap, a hype man is not a rapper, but just another gentleman who is just in the background of a rap song, rap performance, just there to shout in between verse, like, yeah, what, son? Just that's what a hype man does. Parts of this didn't hold up, but it held up the best out of most of what's here. And, yeah, of course, Ludacris is in his element. He put it over with sheer energy. Out of the impressions, I'd say Jason's Harry Connick Jr. and Meyers Streisand worked the best, and Ludacris played off those the best too. Andy Samberg is James Blunt, and Amy Poehler is Dolly Parton, left quite a bit to be desired, but I liked Andy's sad, doe-eyed expression as James Blunt, and Keenan's Louis Armstrong was somewhere in the middle. I did get a kick out of the new titles for these songs, such as It Had to Be You, the parentheticals to these. It Had to Be You, Hell Yeah. The Way We Were, Get Your Damn Hands Up, and let's call the whole thing off, Gangsta Anthem.
And then You're Beautiful, That Ass.
I see that they use a Dolly Parton and James Blunt section to satirize the low-key misogyny and high-key body objectification of women in 2000s rap and hip-hop. They didn't quite execute it well enough, especially You're Beautiful, That Ass, but I got a shameful chuckle out of the joke about how Dolly Parton's breasts look like Beyonce's ass painted itself white and moved up north. And then hearing Luda suddenly chant, take that. That was like Diddy's catchphrase from back in the day, and that hits a lot different given about what we know about him now. You have anything else to say about Young Douglas, Deej?
The one I liked the most was during the Barbra Streisand, The Way We Were.
Uh-oh, she recollecting, y'all.
Like the corners of my mind.
She taking it back to 1973.
And the tradition of whenever Keenan plays Louis Armstrong, that he never really plays the trumpet properly. Very good use of taking classic stuff and add it. Bazinga, please stop that. Go, move. Sorry, I'm getting the Claude paw poke of mom. Next we have is the O'Reilly factor. If I had one theme for this episode, it would be too long. A lot of these sketches are just too damn long. Kind of like the rent is too damn high. In this case, the sketch is too damn long. I did like this one. Bill O'Reilly trying to make a controversy out of completely nothing.
I do actually remember seeing clips of Bill O'Reilly calling for a boycott of Ludacris after Pepsi named him their spokesperson because of his misogynistic lyrics. It's degrading to women, is inappropriate, not for supposedly Pepsi's family-friendly image. And I don't remember seeing these clips so much in 2006 as much as I remember seeing them in 2017, because that was the year that the O'Reilly factor got canceled because, well, let's just say Bill O'Reilly pretty much Me Too'd himself out of that gig.
Yeah.
They were playing those clips of him calling for Ludacris to be boycotted for his degradation of women. And that came back to bite him in the ass hard. And people were saying, well, Bill, you know, you've degraded women so hard that you lost your job over it. And then Ludacris went on to, at that time, be in one of the Fast and Furious movies. I don't remember which one, but whichever one that Dwayne Johnson hosted the season 42 finale to promote. And the gag is that Daryl Hammond is Bill O'Reilly, is grilling Kenan Thompson as the vice president of Def Jam Records. And we're going to boycott you because you just signed a deal with Ludacris. And he's like,
So what's it going to be? Are you firing Ludacris? I need an answer because we're coming up on a hard break.
Yeah, I don't think so.
You'd rather face a factory boycott?
If I have to.
Because see, with the factory boycott, anything can happen to your sales. They can go up, they can go down, they can even stay the same. The uncertainty is psychologically devastating.
I mean, another evergreen point, it's revealed that Bill O'Reilly doesn't quite know how a boycott is supposed to work. A boycott is essentially getting people to protest something to drive down its sales.
Not unlike what Canada is doing right now. A lot of us, me included, are not buying U.S. products.
Yeah, he's okay with being the focal point of a O'Reilly Factor boycott, and he's not going to fire Ludacris over it. And then Luda himself makes an appearance as a Fox News legal correspondent. So Hammond's O'Reilly says, hey, this judge named someone Man of the Year, but for him murdering an 8-year-old girl.
Bill, first of all, it seems Mr. Ewing did not beat the girl to death. He gave her a scholarship.
Doesn't matter. Okay, pal, whether he beat her to death or gave her a scholarship, the girl is 8 years old. She's 8 years old.
Actually, Bill, she's 25. Yeah, she had just returned from serving the National Guard in Iraq, and Mr. Ewing, a local businessman, decided to give her a scholarship to veterinary school. That's why Judge Landis nominated him for Man of the Year.
Okay, you're okay with this judge all on his own getting to decide unilaterally who's going to be the Man of the Year like some dictator?
Well, I've learned that the judge was asked to head the committee making nomination for Man of the Year, and he chose Mr. Ewing only after several weeks of consultation with the other committee members.
And then it ends the way that all O'Reilly parodies on SNL ended, with him just reading letters that alternately praise him for being wrong and chastise him for being wrong. And I mean, I have a lot more to say about this sketch and O'Reilly parodies in general, but I'm just going to throw it to you for a bit in case you wanted to say something else on this.
No, you had brought up the thing that I was going to bring up was the whole thing about the scholarship. Trying anything to make sure that this thing completely distorted facts to try and get some sort of controversy going. But Ludacris killed it in this performance, definitely.
Yeah, I wasn't exactly thrilled to see this sketch in the episodes run down because parodies of Fox News in general felt a little played out by this point. And I don't say that just because it was at this time that Stephen Colbert had just started doing the report on Comedy Central, the Colbert Report, and he had just entered the truthiness phase of his career and found a fresh new way to satirize right-wing cable news punditry in general in character. I say this because SNL and Mad TV to a lesser extent had been parodying the O'Reilly Factor specifically for about 5 years. And, you know, Jeff Richards did a pretty good impression of O'Reilly early on where we, you know, saw this concept but with more life to it. You know, he insists on his facts being right even though they're clearly wrong, and then just stalls an interview over it to the point where he gives a guest the last word and they're like, you should really read more books, Bill. But this one was different for trying to work in a real life controversy around that week's hosts. I mean, it had serious pacing problems. It felt like it was taking forever to set up an actual Ludacris cameo, that the audience was just not expecting by the time it happened 2/3 of the way into the sketch. Part of me thinks that this sketch may have worked better if it was done as a Nancy Grace parody with Amy Poehler, but they probably just picked O'Reilly for the fact he was really boycotting this week's host and used to frequently criticize a lot of rappers on his show for reasons. But yeah, that would come back to haunt him.
The sketch was 8 minutes long. It did not need to be that. So we have a commercial.
Booty business workwear for women who demand attention all day long. Booty business workwear is for the woman who knows that being the boss doesn't mean you gotta stop being fine.
Essentially a play on tracksuits with rather suggestive slogans on them. Like there's one part that Amy Poehler is wearing one that says porn star. There's another one where the pants have tasty on the back of them. So very much like the Juicy Couture. So it's okay. There are definitely better commercial things that have been done out there. This had been proposed a number of times, and not unlike the recent water park sketch, where it didn't work with Megan Thee Stallion, but really worked with what's his name? Really worked with Nate Bargatze. Something like this, Ludacris was the right man for the job.
Yeah, I agree, because it's definitely playing off Ludacris's image at the time. He was known for some pretty borderline hypersexual lyrics in his day. So it was a good way to get Ludacris to poke fun at his own image, even if it didn't totally seem like he was in on the joke. And the show to, in general, satirize the girls gone wild culture of over-sexualizing women that he kind of helped contribute to. But yeah, it's funny because it's women wearing clothes. If they wore to an actual office job in real life, they'd probably get fired for and sent home for the day. And yeah, it makes sense that I thought this might have been a parody of a real clothing line Ludacris had around this time. But I think, yeah, it makes more sense that this just started out as like its own separate thing, just like a parody of, women wearing like pink Mean Girls sweatsuits with juicy written on the ass. So it's like, hey, what if there was a business line of those? So yeah, it was probably just an exaggeration on that, but like maybe if we put Ludacris in that as a host, he markets it as his clothing line, this will work. So yeah, he turned it around by playing off his own image a little bit.
Right commercial, waiting for the right host. Okay, so we next have the debut of Andy Samberg's Blizzard Man. So not unlike the hype man concept, Blizzard Man is supposed to be the best guy, adding in just the right sort of commentary and flavor to a rap song. What he comes up with at the end, with things that just don't make sense. Although I will say,
rap song. We do our raps and then the crowd goes wild, and then it's time for the after party, and we hang out and do lots of sex with girls. Yo.
Hell yeah. Man, what was that? I know, right? My man is a straight genius right off the bat. That's like one take, dog.
Yeah, no, that was terrible.
Yeah, that was absolutely horrible. Really bad.
What are y'all talking about?
one run at the very end went on for quite a while and actually had some rhythm to it. There's a bit at the end where they show a Billboard chart with the Blizzard Man listed as number one, but the chart of the least bought album.
Right. And that chart also has some like hidden Easter egg references to Lonely Island's other musical works like Wait You Guys by the Bing Bong Brothers and Incredibad. And, you know, I'd encourage you to find a screen cap yourself.
I got one right in front of me. This is the top 10 of the least bought albums from Billboard magazine. Starting from number 9 up, Joe and Margie, Fart Parade. Jermaine with My Name Ain't Jermaine, parentheses, yeah it is. Miracle Grow, G-R-O with an apostrophe. Slacks and Pants, DJ Rumpelstiltskin Kid, Rap Scratch Fever, Buzzgum, Stas, parentheses, I Love You. The Party Andersons, Dougie A. R.I.P. Zanzibar, Incredibad. The Bing Bong Brothers, Wait, parentheses, You Guys. And Ludacris featuring the Blizzard Man rap song is number 1. I did like the My Name Ain't Jermaine. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I always love these Blizzard Man sketches for the most part. I mean, I may not laugh as hard at these as I did in high school, but they still give me a chuckle today. I remember this being a pretty divisive sketch in this era and feel like I was its lone defender online, but I always like Andy Samberg on the show in general for just the sheer goofiness, and this works well as a purposely goofy deconstruction of like 90s and 2000s party and gangster rap. I especially like the Vanilla Ice Parker Lewis stuck in the early 90s vibes from this character. That's just icing on the cake. Although a month later we would get a sketch from Samberg and another double duty host that puts his love of early 90s R&B to much better use, which we won't talk about here because we'll be talking about it very soon.
Did you just make a Parker Lewis Can't Lose reference?
And yeah.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Not something you reference these days. The one thing I remember is the character Kubiak. Food Now? For those who didn't know about that show, it was essentially a different version of Ferris Bueller's Day Off kind of vibe. So we have the 2 performances by Ludacris, since he is doing double duty. So I think he had
Mary J. Blige for Runaway Love,
yes,
which was
heartbreakingly
catchy. I appreciate Ludacris trying to do a sincere message song and turning that into a hit at this point in his career. And I'll add, you might notice if you see these episodes that Keenan and the women of the cast introduce these performances in turkey costumes, and I believe that that's because those costumes were for a Thanksgiving turkey chase sketch that would get used 2 years later in another episode Ludacris was just a co-musical guest of with T-Pain and hosted by Tim McGraw. So it must have been weird for Ludacris to see them reuse this sketch without him.
Weekend update. We've talked about the one highlight of that for it. I remember most of the jokes making much of an impact for me.
The one for me that stood out was Seth's joke about Senator Trent Lott now being ousted from his position in the Senate, now being minority whip, but he was disappointed that this doesn't mean he got to whip minorities. And I remember that being a news story that a lot of political comedians jumped on at the time because it was low-hanging fruit. Even Jon Stewart did a whole segment on it titled Ebony and Irony, which he actually interviewed Reverend Al Sharpton for, just not as his guest, but just for that one segment. I think the reason that that's funny is because I believe 4 years earlier he actually said that he wished that Strom Thurmond would have been elected president in 1948 when he ran as a segregationist. But I think that's something that they made fun of in the episode Al Gore hosted, which was covered on That Week in SNL. So if you want to deep dive into that, go there.
There's one I did like was discussing of the seating chart at Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes' wedding.
Yeah, speaking of low-hanging fruit, I wasn't too crazy about it. It was just, they say, oh, here's where the bride and groom sat. Here's the aliens and the other aliens and the cuckoos and nut jobs. And here in the fold out 50 feet away is Brooke Shields. That feels like something Tina would have done 4 years earlier.
Tom Cruise is a Scientologist. And so the fact this whole alien thing is actually part of, and the Thetans is actually part of the well, the ridiculousness that is the Church of Scientology.
Well, I'll say a few things first. I think, Tom Cruise jokes were a little played out because this was a year after the one decent South Park episode we got out of that whole time period in Cruise's career. I see a note that I took that said Amy really sold that priest celibacy joke, which I don't remember off the top of my head.
The Vatican reaffirmed the requirement that priests and seminarians remain celibate. Priests everywhere celebrated the news, saying, "Hey, that's great." It's just what we were hoping for.
Seth sold that Google sex site joke for me.
According to a government study, only 1% of websites indexed by Google and Microsoft are sexually explicit. Though I did my own research, and it turns out that's plenty.
Maybe the highlight of the whole episode was Jason Sudeikis bursting in as Coach Bobby Knight, who berates Seth Meyers for a joke about Tobey Maguire and his girlfriend having a baby out of wedlock, and he just...
Oh, come on! Come on! Look! What the hell was that, Meyers?
I'm sorry, Coach Knight.
What? What? You gotta look at me! You look at me! You keep your head up! You gotta have confidence in your jokes! You gotta stay in the game! You lose confidence, you lose! You understand me? You lose!
Now, I do not know who Bobby Knight is.
He was the coach of Indiana's college basketball team. There was some controversy over him choking a student during practice. So, he's been in the news for just numerous years of anger management problems. And I got a kick out of him, turning to someone else and saying, "Cut your hair," and then just walking off screen and then just throwing a basketball at Seth's shoulder, even if they lingered on that for like 2 or 3 beats longer than they should have.
The voice he used reminded me of the Bad Guys Good Conversation sketch.
Oh, yeah, that one.
Start the show!
And speaking of Weekend Update commentaries where someone just yells angrily, I like Maya's commentary as Anusa Rosenfeld, the editor of 16 and a Half magazine, who is there to pressure young girls to give away all of their food for Thanksgiving, and then commenting on the generosity of the most dangerously thin actresses or just models and personalities in Hollywood. Like, you could see Nicole Richie's generosity just jutting out of her body, and then she just eats her own lip gloss as she continues to scream at you. I mean, Maya really sold this. She put it over on sheer deranged energy alone. It was like, again, an effective satire on the extreme weight shaming of young women and general anorexia chic trends of this time. And I was at the exact right age to understand most of the teen buzzwords Maya was shouting at you throughout this. So I got what she meant when she uttered the phrase, "Hey, Amy, wasn't Degrassi on the end super crunk last night?" I remember Degrassi, and I remember the N being a deep cable channel. Pretty sure this was the first mention of Degrassi anywhere outside of the N or Canadian media in general from before Drake's career in rap took off. Oh, and I don't think I ever learned what crunk really meant. Oh, by the way, apparently Maya's character is a parody of a real woman named Atusa Rubinstein, who was the actual editor of 17 at the time. I don't know why they found it necessary to change the names completely. It's not like they're protecting the innocent. It's not quite a Mr. Show sketch, but...
Well, to define crunk is very excited or full of energy. Also, a type of hip-hop music characterized by repeated shouted catchphrases and elements typical of electronic dance music, such as prominent bass. The guise of, give away all your food so you starve, still lose weight. It wasn't so much funny, haha, more like funny, okay, this is just a little bit uncomfortable. I mean, I get the purpose behind it, so try to do a good charity thing, but you're really just harming yourself.
There's a few sketches left that we can run through real quickly. There's Pool Watch, where it's a CW show, which, by the way, this was the first year that here in the States the CW was a thing, because this the year before this was the last year that the WB and UPN were separate networks, and they just merged and formed the CW. But this seemed like it was written under the assumption that the CW would be more like UPN than the WB, when this wouldn't quite be the case. But it's just one long build up to a slightly hackier racial stereotype than the one that preceded it, because it's basically Maya's an old woman at a pool who tells Ludacris that there is a man drowning, so he's got to get off his tracksuit and his gear, and he's wearing these like weird swim trunks that look like a Speedo over like comical boxer shorts with hearts on them. And he calls his co-lifeguard Malik to tell him to hold his Timberlands so they don't get scuffed. And then Maya says, well, the guy's dead now. He's like, it doesn't matter. I can't swim anyway. So I did get a kick out of Keenan's just 1,000-yard death stare in the camera in his intro. And then the next week on Pool Watch is Fred Armisen's only appearance of the night as an unconscious drowning victim that they refused to give mouth-to-mouth to. So did you have anything to say on this?
Because I'm a studier of television, the television industry, and its history, the CW sort of amalgamated with UPN, which had a lot of black comedies, and then you got the WB, which featured a lot of teen dramas like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Dawson's Creek, and all that. So in their first area, they're going through sort of their sort of mostly teen phase, and then they sort of went a little bit into some more experimental stuff. One show I remember, Reaper, I loved that show, and then eventually then Don Ostroff came along and canceled that, and then eventually went more to the Arrowverse thing, and then with CW, I don't know what they're up to now. Again, another one could have been a lot shorter.
And come to think of it, I think both the CW and the UPN came on in the mid-90s, and it started out like the WB of the 90s had, the black shows with the Wayans brothers and Steve Harvey, and then UPN was mainly known for Star Trek Voyager, I think, but then things changed, and then like Mad TV would parody the WB with Pretty White Kids with Problems.
Yeah.
In Seventh Heaven, and then they would do the sketch about the one black teen show on the WB called Devon's Creek, which I check that out on YouTube if you want. But
the ones I mainly remember for UPM were Homeboys from Outer Space, Secret Diary of Desmond Pfeiffer, Diary of the Butler for Lincoln and Mary Todd Lincoln. UPN did skew more to black ones because they have, for instance, like In the House, Everybody Hates Chris, Girlfriends.
Well, the first two shows you mentioned, I only read about and haven't seen, so I have a hard time believing those are real. But
Moesha, the Parkers, the networks evolve, and I just don't know. I know the CW still exists. What they've been doing a lot lately, though, is they've been taking Canadian shows and broadcasting them.
Yeah, I've seen Son of a Critch is one of those, isn't it?
Yes. Mike Critch, who is one of the people who is on This Hour Has 22 Minutes, which is a new show parody on the CBC. Absolutely hilarious. Been going on for a number of years. So if you ever get a chance to find some stuff online about that, it's out there.
Mark Critch is a guy that plays Trump opposite Mark McKinney as Mark Carney on 22 Minutes, isn't he?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so enough of that side tangent. Let's get back to what little this episode we have. We have the hair transplant sketch. It's good that this gets some Forte-inspired absurdity near the end, because it all turns out to only be Will's only appearance of the night. And, you know, people were kind of speculating on his future with the show because people didn't know he voluntarily gave up the Bush role to Sudeikis. But basically, Forte is Mr. Plotner, who's eager to see the results of his hair transplant surgery, and Dr. Schultz, played by Ludacris, is eager to put on his running shoes to get to the opera on time with his passport and briefcase before he undoes the bandages so Will's character can see his hair. And Sudeikis is Nurse Hamilton, who brings in some tinfoil, which was suspiciously the only reflective surface in the entire medical trailer in lieu of a mirror, to reveal that, and then he comes back for his passport. So basically, Ludacris just switched hair tops with Will Forte because he's a big Elton John fan and just desperately wanted Will's Elton John-like hair instead of his own black man hair. So, and of course, Forte's outraged by this, so he gasses him for one more free and honest session at no charge, and then runs out the door again. And this whole thing was great. The one line I liked the most was from Forte was how he felt safe and in trustworthy hands after he saw the doctor's ad spray painted on the side of an abandoned building.
The doctor taking so much offense as to, you don't talk bad about Elton John.
So you're a big Elton fan, huh?
Look, man, I grew up on the streets of Atlanta, right? And in the ATL, either you're into Elton John or you're dead, straight up. I wanted to be exactly like him, man. I mean, not the gay stuff, just like the flashy suits and the big glasses and the chubby smile.
And that hair, huh?
Well, what makes you say that?
Nothing. It's just, one of his trademarks. You know, that really stupid-looking mop of...
Hey, you shut your damn mouth, man.
I'm sorry. So you like his hair?
Hell yeah. I mean, no.
It's 10-to-1 style, just not at the 10-to-1 slot.
Right, because we got another sketch in between this and the 10-to-1, the lesbian cruise sketch, which we don't have a lot to say on this, but Deej, do you care to say what little you have to say about the lesbian cruise sketch?
To quote the classic in living color movie critics, hated it. Absolutely hated this. Now, there are sketches I'm disappointed in. There are sketches I don't like. But this one, again, too damn long of a very simple joke. The captain on a lesbian cruise trying to fake that's all like lesbian porn. I can only imagine that other stuff that got cut had to be significantly worse to get this thing on the air. I get what they're getting at, but it did not have to go on as long as it did. So,
yeah, some pretty hacky jokes about lesbians and horny, ignorant straight men, so there's not much to say. It took too long to go nowhere. The one thing I got a slight kick out of was when all the women on the boat throw Ludacris overboard, and
rightfully so.
And there's like a pre-recorded voiceover of him yelling, "I love me some lesbians," as he splashes into the water that's played just a beat too early. So another voiceover that didn't work, but to a minor comedic effect when you're looking for something in a sketch. The last sketch of the episode, two old men, Daryl Hammond and Ludacris, a very nice slice of life, charming, genuinely funny sketch. We've seen this a few times. It's old men questioning, like, why did the world change from the way they know it? Ludacris was like, why do phones have to be cell phones? Why can't you have a landline with a long, funky, fucked up cord, as...
Yeah, I remember those.
And I like Daryl Hammond describing his love of TVs that are big, chunky wooden bastards that get as hot as a stove. And it's especially nice of the show to give Daryl a chance to be funny and just to be genuinely funny in a non-impression, non-political role here in the 10-1. I like the rapid fire questions in the middle of the section, like, why do you guys get penis tattoos? Why can't I smoke in JCPenney? And when do prostitutes get so picky? What about chicken on pizza? And why can't they combine the no pee medicine with the stiffy medicine?
It's basically an amalgamation of Pudge and Solomon, as played by Eddie Murphy and Joe Piscopo, and with just a little bit of grumpy old man as done by Dana Carvey thrown in for good measure. And we have the hilarity that is always the wayward mustache.
Daryl Hammond can't even get in his last line because he's laughing because he knows his mustache is hanging off.
What the donk is the internet, huh?
The hell if I know. You got me, my friend. Do you?
I know that your damn mustache is hanging off. I know that.
Did you have anything else to say on this sketch?
One note from the one SNL Day from Stooge, where he had noted that that once the mustache started failing, that they actually signaled just to end the sketch because they know they just couldn't get anything else out. One of these ones going off through, I do remember. I can't remember what the concept was, but there's some part where Joe Piscopo is throwing cake at Eddie Murphy.
The E.Eppy Doolittle sketch. This is live television.
Yes.
The show's live.
Yes. Kind of a nice way, a really nice, pleasant way to end off the show.
Yeah, and that is the episode. So, as promised, here is my ranking of how well these sketches held up in 2025 from worst to best. So it's a top 12 list. Number 12, booty business workwear. Number 11, the bitch slap method. 10, lesbian cruise. 9, pool watch. 8, young Douglas. 7, presidential dress. 6, all of Weekend Update together. 5, Blizzard Man. 4, the O'Reilly Factor. 3, monologue. 2, hair transplant. And the sketch that held up the best was the one we just talked about seconds ago, 2 Old Men. And yeah, that's the episode. And overall, just in a nutshell, it wasn't bad or dull. It was a little bit strange, a little uneven, but fun was had. There were worthwhile moments, and it was pretty decent overall, especially in the back half. Even cast airtime felt uneven because, like we said, it's not a great episode for Bill, but Maya and Keenan dominated the night, which is to be expected when a rapper hosts during this era. Jason, Andy, Daryl, and Kristen got in some assists, and everyone else was forced to fight for scraps. And yeah, I decided to review this episode when Deej pitched it to me for the podcast, and I was a little unsure about this one because I saw Bill wasn't in it all that much, and I contemplated asking her if we could combine this with the Timberlake episode as maybe a semi-best of season 32 thing. But once I dug into it, I discovered there was enough here for us to review it as sort of a time capsule of the strange cultural moment that birthed it. Deej, do you have anything to say on this episode?
Even for only having the 2 appearances, was still pretty good for Bill Hader in season 32. Because he was still trying to find his way in that season. Once John Mulaney came around, he finally found his person for doing good writing with. That's the one thing you gotta find your people in the writing staff who you can work well with together. The one thing that does always bother me, though, about double duty episodes, can't tell by the bumper when it's going to be time for the musical guest. You can kind of look at the time and kind of guess, but you know for sure on a regular episode, it's like once they show not the host but the musical guest, you know that the musical performance is next. But when they're doing double duty, you can't quite tell. Let's look at the clock.
Yeah, but then again, that's this problem that's specific only to live airings. If you watch reruns of episodes, especially ones from the 80s, you'll see a lot of times where a musical guest bumper leads into a sketch, And host bumper is the host introducing the musical guest. So that's specific to just non-double duty episodes, but it doesn't apply to just double duty episodes of any era. Thank you for listening. And next week, we're going to stick with season 32 and stick with male double duty host. And we'll review the Justin Timberlake episode.
But before I go on to that, I want to mention that since this episode does come up before it happens, right now the Saturday Night Network is, like last summer they did the top 50 hosts. This summer they're doing the top 50 episodes. So I'm scheduled to appear on the August 18th episode, covering episodes 13 to 15. And Casey will be on the September 2nd episode. And so, thank you for tuning in. I am Deej Barons and will continue to be.
And I will still be Casey Killingsworth until I'm informed otherwise.
And even though he does have lots of things going wrong with his body, we still heart hater.
We heart haters.
What that ass?
Thank you for listening to We Heart Hater. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe and leave a rating and review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. We Heart Hater is a presentation of Wacky Notion Productions. Created by Deej Barons. Hosted by Deej Barons and Casey Killingsworth. Recording and editing by Deej Barons. Intro and outro music by Music Unlimited, used under Creative Commons license, courtesy of Pixabay.com.